what you now find is that even though you have understood the system, you've understood each of the component parts, just putting the component parts together does not explain how the whole system works. An example is our brain. Our brain is made up of billions of little, what they call neurons, that make very, very, very small decisions. But just by putting these neurons together, you then begin to see behaviors that you can't explain. I mean, the kind of results we now get from artificial intelligence, they are just things that are achieved by putting very little things, almost insignificant components together. But once they come together, then they start doing things that you start wondering. You start wondering, is it that this computer is beginning to understand? It starts responding to you in a way that only people who have understanding can respond. And that's just because the components are now acting as a whole in such a way that you are getting much greater results from the system than you'll have got just putting the whole parts together. Reductionism focuses on the component parts, and sometimes, because of the weakness of our brain, the limitations of our thinking, we need to be able to break things down and look at them at those minute levels, because we are not able to put everything together. So reductionism, the one at which we reduce everything to the basic units, helps us to get some understanding. But we then need to find ways such that when we bring together these little bits, that we are now getting the correct level of results. We need to be able to understand from both these points of views, the reductionist approach and the holist approach, such that we'll be able to move from looking at things from that reductionist level to the holist level. And this is why the operating system is a very, very important issue. As I said earlier, we tend to overlook things like this. We don't give attention to them. That's because we have an inbuilt system that whatever we have done over time that seems to work for us, we try not to give attention to them. Since they are working, we leave that and then give our attention to things that appear not to be working. An operating system takes account of both the components and the whole and how they work together. So that is why, as people, as human beings, more so as people of God, we need to be aware of operating systems. The term operating system became very popular because of ICT, because of computers. Because the computer is probably the most common of things that are extremely systemic. There are many things that work as systems. The results they produce, they are systemic results. For example, the atomic bomb that was detonated in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the Second World War. The amount of energy, the quantity of energy that came out of it is a function of systemic behavior. But, well, it happened once. All we get are threats, and we continue to pray that it doesn't happen again. But that level of systemic behavior, we now wear in our wrists, we carry in our pockets. I have one in front of me here. The same level of complexity, same level of systemic behavior. So that is why the operating system has been made very popular by the computer. And it is what we can use as a useful illustration for how we as human beings should operate within the correct operating system. So for most people now, you are accustomed to computers and you know that your computer works with an operating system. A typical example of operating system: Windows, Android, Linux, and dare I not mention macOS, our pastor's favorite, which some of us don't believe in. I got my first personal computer in 1981-82. It was a computer described as Spectrum ZX81. One of the early experiments of a certain British entrepreneur and inventor by the name of Clive Sinclair. He put together just put a few things together, and the thing started working like a computer. And I refer to it as personal computer because it was big. It was a big thing to have a personal computer in those days. The personal computer was a major step out of what happened before. Because before then, all computers were communal computers. They were used by many people. It wasn't even possible for somebody to afford to buy a computer. In fact, many of the big corporations, even universities, could not afford computers. They leased them.